We will take a look at the editor, the asset store, and the underlying module, which is actually one of the most challenging parts of the game, and I will explain in a minute why. But also the little things we have been working on, bugs and optimizations and this sort of thing. We will also talk about the release this year, right? And future plans for the game, and what else we plan to do under the release. This part of the video is what we will see now in the future more, where each video talks specifically or talks in detail about a certain feature of the game. In this case, I'd like to start with a start in the modding tool, because this has been a very difficult part of the game and of our project. We've been working on it for quite a lot, and you can see the power of it, right? So you will see now some footage. I will show you how we can even change later on some obstacles in the game, like different, let's say, maybe a fridge or a tree, and then also characters and animations. And this is quite a bit. So for, first, as you can see, it feels a bit like Sims, where you can very easily construct your houses, you can construct very easily your rooms, and you can do the same, or you do the same for the dungeons, right? So the dungeons basically consist also of rooms, and you then design those rooms with this tool. And it's actually very powerful because this allows us to create very interesting, I think, designs that you are more familiar, let's say, from Path of Exile or from Diablo, where you have this very interesting dungeons, right? So this applies for both, the surface and then as well in the underground. And the tool is actually quite impressive. It is really supposed to help you to design it. So this most specifically here, and you can see the second that a button is pressed in the bottom, in the top right corner. This is the template mode where you can very easily create these kind of templates. And so this actually allows you to create those templates outside of, let's say, the rest of the game. You can of course do the same on basic terrain, because it's very easy, let's say, create something that you actually need to do. Of course, it then costs, some resources. So you can see sometimes, even in this video in the top right corner, I think it's an older version of the template mode, where it actually shows like the resource costs. And of course, this makes no sense, right? If you are in the template mode and you are supposed to create templates, which actually are like reusable, this is not supposed to appear, but this has been fixed in the meantime. And the template mode is very special because, and I will show this like in a minute, where you can really create something that is a template, as we call it so far, and then put a price tag on it. You can say, okay, I want to sell it like for maybe 10 cents, for $1, or maybe just give it for free. And if you ever played a game like Spore, and this is where the original idea is coming from, because when I was replaying Spore a few years ago, I noticed that Spore has a lot of assets in it, right? Like lots of content based on the editor, the in-game editor of Spore. And I'm actually missing this kind of editor feature in many games nowadays. So for instance, in a game like let's say like Fortnite, or even in a game like many Steam games, you can create mods, but it's actually quite complicated. You have to go through a complicated modding system, even like in Minecraft, right? And so it takes a while to get accustomed to it, and which of course most players really puts off. And in a game like Spore, it was so cool to create creatures and everything on the fly. And it's actually what I enjoy, to have kind of like an editor inside the game, where you can just very easily, go there. It's something that I was really missing in the game The Sims, where it's, first off, in Sims, it's actually impossible to mod the game unless you want to hack it, which, EA, and so this is a different topic. But the general idea of this editor is first to kind of like allow the average player who has no tech experience whatsoever to really create these like interesting things, and then put a price tag on it, or maybe just give it a for free to, I don't know, to his friends or like whoever who wants. And I think this is really cool, and this is hopefully interesting for everybody, because imagine you are playing the game and let's say you are playing a certain faction. Let's say you play the Naga, and the Naga are the jungle people. living, like kind of like the Mayas and the Aztecs, and then you really are looking for assets or like, let's say, creations from other players or for a specific theme, right? For, let's say, the jungle theme. Obviously there should have been, like maybe 100,000 different creations, and this may have been, this is maybe better or maybe that they are more creative than you are, and then you just, like within seconds, you then just kind of like, then download the creations. This is what we are working on. So you can see here, for instance, under templates, you can see former creations here by this user specifically, and then she is just picking up, her former creations and then, creating this stuff. So this is actually very easy to do. There's of course a bit of effort. So this whole store thing is actually kind of a thing that I need to show like in a second. But you can see kind of like the power of it, right? So you can very easy, kind of like a template, copy and paste template, create these things, and not just that, because let's say you create like a defense tower for you specifically that you always want to like reuse, and you can just do it. You just pay then resources when you then place it. And this is the small difference. So this, of course, then raises the question: what if you want to give it to someone else? So the other person, like before you do it, you actually have to go through the asset store. So we are currently changing it so that you actually can create these assets directly from the template mode. But here, for instance, someone is picking, the file, and then setting up the pictures, maybe adding some description, and then basically just deciding, like whether there should actually be a price tag on it, which we also have these kind of small icons there, and the categories, which is something that from, let's say, from the Fortnite store or from the Fortnite modes, or this from Steam Workshop. It's actually it's just we are just trying to be a bit faster with this, or let's say, or a bit easier to use. So it's a bit of effort here, right? And you then just set this up, and then you make the changes that you want, and then it's actually part of the asset store. So that, and I will show this like pretty soon, hopefully, so that someone else can just can activate it or just download it, and then it's actually, of course, fairly easy to use, right? And the idea is behind is really, as I mentioned earlier, is like what you think about The Sims, or when you think about games like Spore in particular, because again, it's hopefully easy to use, and there are basically two different ways on how we do it. I will show you in a second, or like towards the end of the section, the other part. And the first part is, as you can see here, then he is picking up some stuff. There's of course different categories, and then it's basically then selecting certain assets, so that it actually then becomes part of his own template collection, and then he can use it in the way he wants. And as you can see here, you have a screenshot of this asset, and you can just and for as long as this is your asset, of course you can edit. So let's say you want to add, so you want to change, some pictures or like whatever. This is of course a bit of effort that you have to do, but as you can see, this is like fairly simple. There's actually no biggie. This is actually kind of like simple to do. Now the questions, of course, then also so like when you are done with your own asset, what if, and this is actually now the second case, what if you are a different user? So here someone actually logged in as a different user. You basically just subscribe to the asset. So it's actually fairly easy to subscribe to it. And based on the subscription, it's actually then part of your selection, and then you can do some stuff with it. And then you can, let's say, so here I think the tester decided to use it in his own template mode, right? As you can see here. So just to showcase that you have then this asset in your own selection, although it was technically not by you. Okay, so now this of course now raises the question. So first off, it was stuff that was created like within the game. So what if you want to, since the game is actually like full 3D, like what if you want to, let's say, change here like different assets, like obstacles. So this is actually another tool, as you can see in the top left corner. We call it like the Nimoyd modding tool, which is basically a Unity editor. This was we we basically came to the conclusion that it's actually the best choice. So you can actually use the normal Unity editor for, let's say, all kind of asset changes. I find this to be the most efficient way, and actually, the easiest, because if you ever, used Unity before, this is very powerful. And since we're using then also Unity for our own engine, this is actually pretty fine. But what happens is actually, and so for instance, in this case, he's actually a very complex character, where this is actually where it's actually like important, where, for instance, you are changing, you are changing like some animation parts, you want to prepare the 3D character for the game. So if you ever like worked with 3D tools before, or like 3D characters in the game, you kind of know the drill. This is actually not special. And of course, but this of course then raises the question, okay, if you make these changes, like so let's say within the editor, and you actually really allow these kind of assets to be part of the game, right? How to get these assets as into our asset store? This is of course the tricky part. So this is actually what we do and what we will see towards the end. So this is kind of like the second mode. So the first mode that we saw earlier was the template mode, where you can, within the game, you will kind of like create your own stuff. But if you want to go deeper, and you want to kind of like add your own 3D creations, you want to add certain assets to the game that are really not part of the game yet, then of course you have to go through this tool. So first you go through the Nimoyd modding tool, where you kind of like make your adjustments. You have to, you have to be conform with the format. There are certain formats, like regarding animations, also like regarding coding, in case you want to change the game later on into, an RTS, so you want to change the camera perspective and so on. I will show this maybe in a few months, how to do this, because we are still working on this. But, in this case, so let's say you want to have like a new playable character. And this is, by the way, this is actually a playable character here. This is actually a player character. Then you kind of like make your preparations, you apply to it, and then you are then using our commit system. So we actually have like a full system where you make your changes. Let's say you make your changes to the database, where you kind of adjust some values for the game, right? So let's say you want to change the attack values of some enemies, you want to change the money system, or like whatever you want to do for your particular mod. Then there's actually a set of buttons, or like a set, as you can see on the right corner or on the right side, where you can make changes, right? So you then say, okay, like my mod, this is the name of my mod. I want to change, so you have different versions. And then you basically just commit it then to our backend system. And this is actually like even an older version. There's actually by now like a newer version where you can even set even more values. And what you saw earlier, like with the asset store, is basically what you can also do now, like in this version, where like in the modding tool, you then also set, the price, you set the descriptions, you set the categories. It is just, let's say the more technical, deeper level of the game. And of course, you then communicate with our servers, because of course the asset store itself is, on our server side and like in the Google Cloud. And then you just, do this kind of operation to edit there. And it actually makes sense, like if you really want to, let's say, replace the whole game with furries, for example, or I don't know, like with cats, and you want to change, let's say, or you want to alter the mechanics, or you want to alter certain values, then you really go, because the tool can go deeper. And this is really important for us, by the way, because we are actually using the same system. So it's not just like an additional thing. We are literally using this type of system for ourselves. So which means that the whole game is technically a vanilla mod to the whole game, and and it's kind of like all the changes that you're making are basically coming always on top of the vanilla. So if you can actually like replace everything if you want, but of course you're always altering vanilla, as we all know, like from other games. And this is the idea behind it. This is where this was definitely some effort, yeah. I wanted to share this part with you because, like when you show these kind of like nice features, and we will do, like proper videos about single features pretty soon. I wanted to share with you what we actually are working on a daily basis, most of us. It's really gameplay, bug fixing. And the fun thing is, of course, it kind of also shows, parts of the game that actually maybe not so obvious. I think that this is even something like a dungeon test. There's something is a bit off. So the past month, so what I actually really plan to do is I actually plan to show a demo at the past Steam Next Fest. So we will be part of the next Steam Next Fest in, I think, June. I don't remember. But yeah, we didn't make it, or I changed it, or I changed it like really in like almost I think 3 days before the Steam Next Fest. Fortunately, Steam was kind of to us to kind of like allow us to do to do the next Steam Fest, largely because for like tech reasons, right? Because it really takes a while to add not only the huge amount of assets to our games. Since our game is generated, you literally have to use the modding system to add stuff. And since I mentioned earlier, we've been working hard on the modding, so you can imagine what then happened, right? We were actually not able to add assets to the game for quite a while. Because I didn't want to sacrifice time, and then if we change some stuff or change the format, and then the content would be lost, and then we have to go back again and re-import it. But this is what we do. We are currently optimizing the game. We are still making minor changes to the UI. I think I'm not showing in this devlog so much of the new UI. But which I will do pretty soon. I will actually explain what you do with the factions, and how those different tokens actually work in a game that you can earn, and the story tree system, which is actually a bit more innovative. But yeah, as you can imagine, we are actually definitely doing a lot here, and testing the game, and this takes a while. So you can imagine that the game has many small game mechanics, right? And they now because the assets coming into the game, and the biomes look better every day because of those extra assets. We are then of course bug fixing a lot of stuff, improving some stuff, and there are some of the bugs are actually quite hilarious, and really and really ugly. But I hope that by showing you these videos, I hope it's actually cool enough and interesting enough to see the scale, let's say, of what the amount of assets and the amount of items we have in the game, and how many of the stuff actually is animated. So yeah, and this of course for a small team like ours. It's definitely a bit of a challenge, right, to do this in full 3D. I found this to be easier in 2D or pixel art, really, because it's really less expensive. But in 3D, of course, it's a whole workflow. So I hope you're enjoying these kind of things. Oh yeah, here for instance, the shooting bug. This was really cool. This actually now is, of course, now it looks much better. It also plays better because some of these videos are also a bit old, a few months. But this was actually why I didn't want to do the Steam Next Fest, and to buy our team more time. I will talk about the worker system, by the way, another time, because if I think this actually may require an explanation. I don't know what the developer here was testing. But this is, as I mentioned earlier, this is usually how we talk about these things. So developers, when they are done with something, or when they discover a bug, this is how they show it and share it with the team, because it's usually quite efficient to talk to them. Or because oftentimes you also see something that maybe then the other developer did not even discover, and then you saw it in the video, and it's actually really effective. Multiplayer bugs. These are really interesting. So the game is really, of course, multiplayer. I mean, we will see at the game's release, how stable multiplayer is. But of course, we also test multiplayer and spend a lot of time on it. And this actually has many implications for the game, right? So I think that the development could have been much, much cheaper and much easier if it was not for multiplayer. But so as you can see, I think some of these videos are really old. But as you can see, I think for multiplayer, it's always interesting to when you compare it, them with the client, and before you ask, there's a whole server system, so you can actually the hosting is actually then quite simple. Maybe I should do a video about it before I say something wrong. Because we are making changes, but I will do a video specifically about multiplayer, I think. And the idea is really that you can actually really invite your friends. You can actually become friends with people, and then you can just invite them. So I think if you ever played a game where you can maybe invite people to your servers, then it's actually pretty cool and nice to use. And plus, we also have public servers. So if you want actually to host your own servers, it's not a problem. Yeah, it's actually pretty cool. And as you can see, it's right. So like for a voxel-based game, this is like always a bit of a challenge. It's not that easy actually, compared to, let's say, like a normal game. So let's see how the performance will be with the servers. Well, I think this is not even like really multiplayer related here. I don't know why I added it. Oh, I think this is like a real. So this is the kind of voxel bugs that we are tackling, because of course we made so many changes to the system that sometimes we like discover some really nasty stuff that is actually like even sometimes really difficult to like report, because maybe some, I don't know, some generation issue. Oh, here's of course the dungeon, and then I don't know. Oh, this is like testing some NPCs. It's actually pretty cool. Yeah. So. Yeah, PvP, PvE plays a really big role in our game. It's not visible here, but you can, like, if you really are into peaceful gameplay, then of course you can also turn off the enemies, or you can just make them peaceful, so they are then also less aggressive. This is something that I enjoy about Minecraft, because I know that some people really like it. Oh, I think that this is like this was a bug a couple of weeks ago, where I think it really went through the NPC. This was like a box collider problem, by the way. This was like quite hilarious. I don't remember what kind of bug this was, but it's definitely. Yeah, I'm not getting it, but I hope you see. Oh yeah, I mean, it's like, don't be surprised. These kind of like things that you saw like on the left side is actually kind of like cheat functions for the developers to spawn faster. Yeah, this is what we work. But I hope these videos also show you, how the game looks. And you can see what I actually still like is actually how much actually pixel art sometimes it's still in the game. Just, here and there. I think this is not in the game anymore. I removed it myself, but, it's definitely a bit of stuff going on. Yeah, the game changed. Okay, yeah, what else to say? Well, the future plans and the release and, Steam Next. But so far, the idea is to release the game during summer, right? And it will be an early access game. And then we hopefully will see how you guys react to it. No, seriously, the plans for the next months are really that we will now, we will now do our marketing campaign. We will actually then show the game now, then once again, because the game changed now quite a bit. I think it's now about time to share it more with the public. Yeah, and then of course also, as we explained, the mechanics. I will do like specific devlogs about certain mechanics until the game's release, and we will see how this goes. So the idea for the game's release is really to go early access, and then really wait for feedback. For as long as needed, really, because the game is actually so extensive. I hope that over time, maybe after 1 year, the game will be cool enough to you, so that what we actually hope the state could be, it will be then at that time available. What I think when it comes to stuff, like the asset store, and when it comes to let's say different platforms, what I can say is that of course the asset store will be available at game's release. Since we are using it like generally like ourselves, we may tweak it, or maybe we will like disable certain features, like maybe like the paid content stuff, in case we feel that this is kind of like abuse. I already spoke with Steam about it, how to do it better, because I really didn't have so much experience actually with this kind of like MMO, because the game itself is not an MMO, obviously, but you can imagine, right? So it would actually it raises question if you have kind of like a payment system like within the game on how to handle this on Steam if you have user generated content, right? We are basically not using the Steam Workshop for this one. We have our own Steam Workshop, so this actually raised a number of questions, but Steam seems to be fine, because of course for the actual payment, the actual dollar payment, we're using their payment system then again. So I think this is fine. This is okay. When it comes to the different platforms, yeah, we still focus on PC. The game is definitely developed with console and mobile in mind, by the way. So mobile, maybe, I don't know, in 1.5 years. But I really like to use PC, kind of like Roblox and kind of like Minecraft, to really flesh out and really polish the game, to make it as interesting and and as polished as possible. and then slowly, like releasing new features and, giving some great, new content updates. And so, I think you kind of like see where we are going, right? Yeah, and I hope you're enjoying the game. So when it actually finally is then available, we will do some alpha and beta testing. I was actually considering doing a Kickstarter, literally in particular for this kind of like, alpha and beta testing. And well, then the marketing guys said, well, don't do Kickstarter because of A and Z and B. And I was like, oh man, this is so. I mean, let's see about this, right? So this is really, I think, something that we have to see in the next months, how the game feels in the public. And oh yeah, this is, I think this is a good hint. I was not showing as much of it. The transportation system, by the way, and the cities. This is actually something that I will cover in a new video. So if you made it until here, this is definitely something very special and something really complex. So what we are trying to do with the game is, we try to push the survival genre quite a bit, and at the same time to really open up this kind of user-generated content part to make it like as easy to use as possible, because I'm actually not so satisfied how other games are sometimes doing it. Or they build a game and then you are enjoying the game, and then all of a sudden it becomes like a huge problem, to add your own stuff into the game, and then you notice, okay, the developer did not really had user-generated content in mind, which is okay, for a lot of games, like all MMOs, I think, built like this. So this is okay. It of course depends on the developer, but in our case, the user-generated content and the actual modding is really at the core of the game. This is no joke. And with the visuals that you have in place, and then let's see how this feels, right? I think the hope is that maybe after 1 or 2 years, the game will be awesome, and all the stress, and all of those problems that we encountered during development would have been worth it. Yeah, so much from my side. I wish you a wonderful week and a wonderful day, and yeah, please stay tuned. I will update more stuff until until the game's release, and also in summer, and then we see how it goes. Oh, by the way, as you can see here, we also have like a lot of different characters. I think we didn't even activate many of the characters yet, but they are kind of like locked. There's kind of like an unlock system for them. But this is something that I will cover maybe in the future. About how, like, what our heroes are, and how to unlock them, and what are the mechanics of those guys. Yeah. All right. So much from my side. It was a pleasure, and then talk to you soon.
gamezplay.org